1978. And a warm stream of light flowed into the room, filled with butterflies and flowers. There was a huddle of six-year-old girls on the floor, all snuggled in together, listening to Sister Torian. Sister Torian was the first nun I ever knew. Always in a habit, in her young 30s, she radiated God's love and beauty. And as we were sitting there, she was reading the beautiful gospel stories to us. And she helped me fall in love with Jesus. Because of her, I thought of being a nun many, many times in my life. She not only helped me fall in love with Jesus, she told me and convinced me that I could let my light shine and make a difference in this world. And she had me dreaming of going to heaven. Wouldn't it be fabulous if our lives could remain so innocent and blissful forever? And then, in the 4th grade, I had my first sex ed class. That is way too late for sex ed. Well, we were learning all about the parts of our body and what was and how things should go or not go. I heard that if I ever let anyone touch me down there, God wouldn't love me anymore. I had been touched down there for 2 years already. I didn't know who to tell. I didn't know where to go. And I couldn't make it stop. By the time it continued, 3 years later, I was no longer interested in what Jesus had to say. And when you think it can't get any worse, I was raped. By my fiance. Who took my virginity, introduced me to drugs, and was an outrageously controlling, violent, and abusive drug dealer. Well, 2 weeks later, the pregnancy test proved positive. I had no one that I knew that I could talk to. I told him I'd give up the baby for adoption because that was the right thing to do. He told me no, I wouldn't. If I wasn't going to keep the baby, he'd take it. An attorney agreed. If he proved paternity and I didn't want the baby, he'd have first dibs. I couldn't give a sweet, innocent child to a man who was so violent, who taught me drugs, who sold drugs, who was abusive and controlling. I couldn't fathom co-parenting with him for 18 years. So I made the hard decision and I aborted. In that moment, the door closed. I no longer had any faith, hope, or trust in God. And I closed that door and bolt locked it shut. And I turned off the light. And not knowing what to do with the pain, I went into drugs and I ran. I ran away from myself. And for 10 years, I made a string of bad choices and bad decisions, and I ran and I ran and I ran. And while God, Jesus, is trying to spoon me, I keep running and running and running until the day I can't look myself in the eye. I'm standing in the mirror, looking at myself and wondering, what happened to that sweet 6-year-old girl who dreamed of going to heaven, who wanted to let her light shine, who just wanted to be loved and love God. So for the second time in my life, I got rid of every relationship and everything I knew, and I ran away. And I ran away not this time from myself, but I ran away to find myself. I just needed to find peace. And I ended up in recovery. And fortunately, when you get to recovery, they don't ask you to find God. Because had they asked me to find God, I would have told them some really not nice words. I would have left and never returned. What they asked me to do was to find a higher power. And I could get down with that, right? I wasn't the most powerful person in the room. And fortunately, I lived right on the beach, and I found that higher power on the beach. Nothing I could do could stop those waves. And the sounds of the ocean just soothed my soul. I finally learned how to say the word God, but not the way we say it or some people say it now. It was only good, orderly direction. And I could live with that. During that time, I found my forever. And when I found my forever, I insisted that we get married in the church. Not because I was going to church, and not because he was going to church, but I believed that if I got married in the church, he would bless and protect my family and my marriage. Anybody ever try to make God a genie or a slot machine or anything like that? Well, it didn't really work out that way, as you could probably imagine. I did get a beautiful little girl out of it, but my marriage totally wasn't blessed. And when I ended up completely abandoned and all alone in a desperate situation, a friend of mine came and knocked on my door. Now this is someone I never ever talked to, but she was there helping me get clean, and I barely talked to her, and she came in for a visit. I heard you were back in town, just wanted to say hi. And so we're talking, and I'm telling her everything that's going on, and she turns to me and says, Anastasia, what are you doing for your connection with God? And I turned to her and said, Darlis, look at my life. And don't you even bring that word into my life, because that hasn't helped any. And so she turned to me and said, Anastasia, have you ever heard of unity? And I turned to her and said, huh. 10 years ago, I was in Toastmasters with the pastor of Unity. Her name was Diane, and I was never really interested, but I wonder if she's still there. So that Sunday, I put 14-month-old Ariel in our truck, and we drove to Unity, because I was just curious if she was still there. And when we got to Unity, all the people were so welcoming and so helpful, but Diane wasn't there. She was on vacation. She'd be there next week. But what I found out was that Unity had free babysitting and a potluck for the 9 a.m. service and the 10:30 service. In the next 4 years, I never missed a Sunday. That was the best gig I found. I would drop off Ariel at free babysitting for the 9 a.m. service, go sit in the service because I felt like I had to at least participate something, pick up Ariel, take her to the potluck. Then I'd take her back to the babysitting, go hang out for me time all by myself, child-free, on the labyrinth, go back to the potluck, that girl can eat a lot, feed her, and then they'd always give me leftovers. It was the best gig ever. But in those 4 years, Diane opened a crack for God's light and his love to shine. When I moved to Colorado, I couldn't find a church like that. I couldn't find a place to call home. Nothing accepting, nothing welcoming, nothing warm. And so I forgot all about God. Until Ariel, in the 2nd grade, as a 7-year-old, comes up and says, Mommy, can I get baptized with Olivia? Not knowing anything and not understanding Olivia's church, I said, have I really forgotten to do anything for her? So I said, honey, how about Mommy teach you what Mommy learned when she was a little girl? Because when she was a little girl, she just loved Jesus. Would that be okay before we made any major decisions? Yeah, Mommy, sure, whatever you want to do. And so today, a 7-year-old little girl ran me back into the church. But now that I'm here, I'm stronger and wiser than I was. I've learned clearly how to reach out, ask for help, and tell people what I need. All those tools that I didn't have as a kid, when all I wanted to do was sing, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." All those tools that I didn't have, I now had. And now I'm not willing to just take anyone's opinion as to how they translate God. I'm studying for myself, but not a translation of any book or anything. I'm studying the actual word, and I'm studying the doctors, and I'm studying the saints. And I am so glad that I get to fall in love again.